Today I'm going to talk to you about drum notation. So I am a composer and an avid fan of John Williams, like I said in my previous video, but I'm also a drummer. I play the drum kit and I have done for a very long time, and that's how I pay the bills mainly. That's the main thing I do. I play a lot of functions and I play a lot of musical theatre, big band, things like that. So I want to just talk briefly about drum notation and about the things about it that I love and hate, and I just thought I'd give a guide to you guys as to what's going on when drum notation happens. Not all drummers read music. It's really annoying because obviously jokes come about because they say, oh, so-and-so can't read, and then it makes us look stupid. And we've only just shifted the jokes onto the bass player. We can't have them coming back to bite us again now. A lot of drummers learn music through repetition, through playback, through listening. They learn it orally, and a lot of teachers don't even teach via music notation. They teach simply by listening and repeating, which is a completely valid way to do it. However, I think that if you are trying to master a craft, why not master everything to do with that craft? Why only master certain aspects of it? And it'd be really difficult to learn things like musical theatre or big band sets because they're so long. If I was to turn up to a session playing for a pop artist, I'm not expecting them to have an engraved perfect sheet of music in front of me. That's perfectly valid. But if they have at least a piece of paper that says, 8 bars rock, 8 bars fill into chorus for 8 bars, that kind of thing, that really helps. Because if they send me a reference track and they're only paying me for the session, I'm probably not going to spend a lot of time learning that track. Whereas if I can turn up and there's a thing there, it really helps. I'll also listen to the reference track, don't get me wrong. It makes everything so much easier if I have something to read. Every now and again I travel over to Liverpool and I play a gig with a Danny Miller big band, but the thing is we have no rehearsals. It's literally all sight read, and I love doing that. I love turning up and being able to sight read, being in a room of musicians who are all so capable at visually reading music and being able to play it. There's another big band on the Wirral who I've gone and played a few gigs for as well, where there's 400 charts sat next to you. Every 4 numbers or so they'll hold up 4 numbers, and you have to find those charts. It could be anything, literally anything. One of them could be a ridiculously difficult Buddy Rich tune like Sweet Georgia Brown at 300 BPM, or it might be a really easy track like All of Me or something like that. A little bit of history about the drum kit. So the drum kit is a hodgepodge instrument. It's made up of lots of other instruments. You've got the snare drum, you've got the toms, you've got a bass drum, you've got the cymbals. Now historically, percussion could have been written on one line. So for example, cymbals, you may have a person in the orchestra who plays the cymbals and they might read it along one line, and whenever there is a note, they know to hit the cymbals together, that kind of thing. And there's other articulations around that, like whether to do a quick close one, a big open one, that kind of thing, dynamics. But same with the snare drum, same with the bass drum. Timpani's a bit different because timpani's tuned, and all the other tuned instruments like marimba and xylophone and what have you. But in terms of actual percussive things that have no pitch, it's always just been written on one line. Now a drum kit, all of those things don't have a pitch, but it's written on a 5-line staff. So the bass drum goes in the F space just above middle C, where F would go. Sometimes you might see it on the E or the D. To be honest, you know that if you see anything below the F, you know that to be a bass drum. Snare is always that C, dead center in the middle of the staff. And then you have your toms, which can be anywhere from the G above the staff to the G below the staff, that whole octave. Any one of those apart from the snare could be a tom-tom, either a high tom or a low tom, so a rack tom or a floor tom. Sometimes you'll see crosses like this, and that can mean cymbals, so anything above, so sort of E and above is cymbals, and then if you see it on the snare line, that means a rim click. And then if you see it below the staff, that means a hi-hat stomp. And a hi-hat stomp, so if you're playing jazz, you see it on the bottom, every 2 and 4, that's just hit the hi-hat on the 2 and 4. And if you see the little circle, as though you were playing a harmonic on a string instrument, that means splash it open. Similarly with the hi-hat above the staff, if you see a circle above it, like the harmonic sign, that means open it up. And if you see a plus sign, that means close it back down again. You might also see the diamond symbol, which is also used for harmonics, funnily enough, in string writing, and that can mean open hi-hat, but it can also mean the bell if it's on the line of the ride, which is usually the top F line. The thing about this is, I say usually because I've seen some drum scores where the hi-hats are written on the E line and the ride is written on the F, or I've seen the hi-hat written on the D and the ride written on the E. It's whatever, as long as you've written as an arranger above it HH, and then when it moves to ride, I know what I'm doing. As much as people try and standardise drum notation, it's fine as long as we know what we're doing, as long as you tell us what we're doing, ride or hi-hat. The inspiration behind this video came from this image, and I don't know who the original author is, but they're a genius. The way that it's been lined up exactly to look like a drum kit and to fit on the staff is just genius. It's a really great way to visualize what you see on the instrument and what you see on the page. Really clever, really creative. A lot of older jazz or musical theatre parts are really non-descriptive. They're literally sometimes just snares fall to the floor, and they'll just say swing above it, and you just sort of have to know that that means play a jazz pattern. Because if you were to sit there and they start playing and you're just hitting the snare 1, 2, 3, 4, you're not going to get asked back. So that's just a quick warning to any drummers who are watching this. I briefly mentioned All of Me earlier, but in this arrangement, it was originally written by Gerald Marks and Seymour Simons. They have written just those snare marks, but then they've also written accents along the top. So you know to play a jazz pattern, but then when you see the accent along the top, you know that the rest of the band are going to hit that accent and you can hit it too. It's really useful because it means that you can basically play whatever you want as long as you hit those stabs. I really actually kind of like the minimalism of just seeing 4 snares because it kind of means that you can do whatever you like, and it also means that they have faith that you know what you're doing as a drummer. A lot of what we do as drummers comes from improvisation anyway, so why not let us just go for it? You have sometimes where you have just the slash lines, not even just the snares, you just have slash lines. For example, in this arrangement of Burun Kaka. I don't really know how to say that. Burun Kaka. Burun Kaka? Burun Kaka. I don't know. It was arranged by Bill Dobbins anyway. And we have no clues. We have some clues of what to play. So we have the slashes, which just means improvise, but then we see brushes along the top. We think to ourselves, what are we doing with the brushes? Are we stirring? Are we playing a jazz beat? What are we doing? But then we see it says swing in the tempo, so you've got to just assume it's just brushes on the snare swinging. Sometimes it's difficult with that because it doesn't say stir and it doesn't say brushes on the ride. Whenever you see brushes, it sort of usually means snare. But that's the thing, there's a lot of room for you to improvise even when you're learning music. So it's not like when you're learning the oboe and you've got to learn exactly what everything means, because sometimes when you're playing the drums, it's about what you can bring to it, not just what the arranger tells you to bring to it. Again, in the arrangement of All of Me, we see things like play 7 more times, which is interesting because you're having to remember where you are without being able to read it on the score. You can't follow bar by bar anymore, just like if you're in an orchestra and you're counting rests, which is a huge thing that a lot of people have ailments with, especially as someone who's played percussion in symphony orchestra before. You sort of think to yourself, do I need 77 bars rest? I can't count all of that. You're gonna have to cue me in. An amazing arranger and composer and also pianist is Gordon Goodwin. I love playing his arrangements. The Jazz Police is one of my favourite all-time big band pieces, and I loved playing it. I played it in an audition to get into the big band at university when I first got there. I felt bad because I told them I was sight reading it, but I'd learnt it pretty well. And I love playing that piece because not only does it have really good description of what you should be playing, but it also has the slash marks with the accents as well. It has everything going for it, because also you listen to the recording, the drummer on the track, Ray Brinker, he brings his own special flavour to the track. He's not playing exactly what Gordon wrote, which is amazing. It sounds amazing. He's such a great drummer, and I love trying to emulate him and building on what he did on the track when I'm playing it. Then I also know that I can read the track. I'm not having to remember what he did. I can add my own individual path onto the part. When you're playing the saxophone in a big band, you still have to play the notes that are written, you still have to play the articulations that are there. The tone is yours, that's for sure, but as a drummer, 90% of what we play is what we decide to play, what we put in there. You sometimes get some arrangements where they try and overfeed you, they try and give you too much, there's sentences above every bar telling you what to play, and it's great, but then sometimes it's also like, well, this isn't sight readable, I'm going to have to learn this. Not only that, but do you really want me to play exactly what you'd be playing at this point in time? Another example of this is the Bill Waterhouse and the Manhattan Wildlife Refuge Big Band, when in their version of Spain by Chick Corea. It's a great tune, but the drums are not playing anywhere near what the track says, what the sheet music says. I've played that track a few times myself, and sometimes it's fun to put like a really crazy Latin beat in there. Sometimes it's nice to do what the drummer did on the track and just play it on the hats. I don't know, but that's not what the music says. That's the thing, as drummers, even if you're learning the music and how to read music, you've still got to be able to improvise. You improvise while you're listening, and you improvise while you do the repetition and callback and all those things. You're learning how to improvise. You can still do those things. You don't lose your musicality through learning how to read music. And that's a big complaint that I hear a lot of drummers say who don't read music. You can play whatever you want, really, let's face it, but at the same time it's nice to have a visual guide, especially if you're playing something long like musical theatre. Sometimes where you're playing all the way through, you know, I went and depped on a small Amdron production of Evita once, and that show is very, very, very difficult, and it's played all the way through. The music never stops. So you've got to be able to keep up with that. And I'm not going to learn 2.5 hours worth of music to go dep on a band call in Sheffield somewhere for a couple hours. It's nice to have the music there and know that I am able to cope sight reading that music. Another thing I come across occasionally is that you might have loads of tom fills written in, or just extra things on the toms. The thing you've got to remember is, as an arranger, not all drummers are this guy, Neil Peart. Not all of them have got 10 toms on their kits and, you know, 4 different crashes and all that kind of thing. The most you're going to get really is 3, 2 up and 1 down. So that's 2 rack toms and 1 floor tom. And even then, you're probably going to get 1 up and 1 down. If you write as a big drum fill with loads of different things, we're going to follow that shape probably, but you're not going to get the same kind of effect. If you're writing, you know, toms on the top F line, E line, D line, B line, A line, and G line, that's 6 toms. I'm not taking 6 toms to a gig. The most toms I've ever taken to a gig was a metal gig I did once where we headlined the Underground in Stoke-on-Trent with my band Cities That Sleep. We were a post-hardcore band. I was very cool. And I took 5 toms. That's the most I've ever taken. And that was on a metal gig where I could take my own kit and do whatever I wanted. And I'm not going to take 5 toms to a big band gig, let alone a musical theatre gig. And when you play musical theatre, often you're in a pit. You've only got so much space. You can't fill that up with this monster kit. As much as I would probably love to, you can't do that. Some drummers will turn up with 2 bass drums, 8 toms, loads of crashes, rides, whatever. They'll have everything you want. Some drummers might turn up with bass drum snare, hat, and ride, and that's it. You don't know what you're going to get. But that's the interesting thing about the drum kit being a hodgepodge instrument. There's no universal drum kit. There's just lots of different variations on the same theme. Now, admittedly, you're probably going to get bass drum snare, tom, floor tom, hi-hat, crash and ride. That's what you could expect, really. As drummers, we can play in a plethora of different musical styles. We can play rock, pop, Latin, fusion, funk, musical theatre, jazz. You know, we really do cover the whole spectrum. Reggae, gospel, everything. A lot of those genres don't necessarily need music or drum notation. I don't believe that every drummer has to learn music notation. I think it would be unfair to expect that of every single drummer, because a lot of situations don't require it. I'm just saying that as someone who loves being in the worlds of musical theatre and big band and things like that, it's a real necessity for those things. So what I'm saying to arrangers is give us something to work with, tell us sort of what you want, but don't overfeed us. Don't make it so much so that we're stifled in our creativity. Slash lines are great, but maybe a sort of general rhythm or beat. Use words, you know, language. Say things like, I want a swing beat a la something. I quite often see jungle drums a la Gene Krupa. I know exactly what that means. That means the intro to Sing Sing Sing. There are definite things that we all know as drummers. We all get those reference points, and it really helps. To drummers, maybe try learning music notation. It opens your horizon in terms of being able to play drums. You're not going to get musical theatre gigs, you're not going to get big band gigs, unless you know it. I mean, we all like to cite Buddy Rich as the guy who couldn't read music, but you know what? You're not Buddy Rich. I'm not Buddy Rich. No one is Buddy Rich. The only person who is Buddy Rich is Buddy Rich. And that guy was on Broadway at the age of 2 because he was that talented as a drummer. He is the outlier. All the rest of us need to graft, need to work hard, need to make sure that we are the best we can be professionally. And I think part of that is learning music notation. If you want to ignore what I've said, that's absolutely fine. If you don't need it, you don't need it. But I think it might be an extra cool thing to learn and to help you develop. A lot of Instagram drummers who are coming up with really cool fills and beats and stuff, on their videos they'll often have the drums written out at the bottom, and I find that so helpful. You know, you can share your creativity with other people. Instead of us having to try and remember what you did, you can show us what you did, and it's just really great. I've learned so many drum fills from watching Instagram drummers. Don't think of notation as stifling us or putting us in a cage. Think of it as adding an extra arrow to our quiver, or, you know, an extra string to our bow, an extra drumstick in the drum bag. Drums, there's no drum equivalent of the metaphor, but you know what I mean. There are many ways to start reading music notation. You could start off by, there are plenty of beginner books. Working your way through grades is really great as well. Rock School is what I did, which a lot of people say isn't the best one. Trinity are pretty good, but actually I really enjoyed Rock School. Challenge yourself Go and ask if you can play with a local big band, an amateur big band. See what you can do. Go and say to the MD of your local Amdram group, can I play drums or can I sit in? You know, think of it as something that will broaden your horizons, and it really will. Even if it's just a reference guide, great, awesome. Whatever helps us all create music is a good thing. Let me know what you think in the comments. Call me a Nazi, I don't know. I hope some people get something out of this. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Go check out my other videos. Check out the videos in the future that might have come out by the time you're watching this. I don't know. Thanks for watching. Go make more music. Be creative. Bye.